We're recording.
All right. So let's see. I guess we will call the communications meeting to order December 21st at 9 a.m. And our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the November 2021 meeting.
Yep, I make a motion.
They look good to me.
Okay. So I think Sharon, I think we have to follow the language.
Yep. I make a motion to accept the minutes of the communications subcommittee from November. Leave it second.
Yep.
All right. So I think we're squared
All in
away.
favor? Done.
All right. We're super informal, and then after we get a couple passes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. All right. So I think the next item is social media, which actually I see Lisa just joined us, so I think she is our social media queen.
Among
least-
other kinds of queens.
Right.
Yeah. You're muted, Lisa.
Sorry, I'm late. I went to 3 of the 4 schools this morning and I got held up at the last one. I'm only queen because Dan DeVito is the king and the master and helping me with my podcast. I have 2 more podcasts that will be released in January. So that's exciting. We're ahead of the game.
Fun. I love them, by the way. I love the podcast that I've seen one, and they're so good. They're so good.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's going well, I think. Yeah.
So I'll say from a social media perspective, we are closing in on 1,000 followers for our Instagram account. We have 996.
Yeah.
Lisa
Great.
and all the administration, they've been doing really a fantastic job posting on the district Instagram account. We've been getting a lot of engagement on the Instagram account, so it's really good to see that we're spreading the good word and showing all the amazing things we're doing in the district via Instagram. Facebook, we are increasing people who are liking and following us. We had discussed last communications committee meeting about using Facebook to promote upcoming board meetings and committee meetings. So the Facebook Business Suite, which is what we get for free, allows us to schedule posts that we can publish. So I did that for the Board of Ed meeting and for the communications committee meeting. So I'll post what I think I'm gonna do is in the first of the month or around the first of the month, I'm going to post all upcoming Board of Ed and committee meetings for the month. And then I'm going to pre-schedule for the day before each meeting, the connection information and the link to the agenda for the meetings. I'm going to have to play around with the timing of scheduling that, just because on the first of the month, the agendas are not necessarily built for all of the meetings for that month. So I have to wait for the agendas to get built before I can do that scheduled post for the day before. But it seems to work really well. We reached, for the Board of Ed, it reached 149 people for the scheduled post. The post for the communications committee meeting reached 115 people. So it is getting out there. The information is getting out there. So I think it's a good move for us to schedule that way. It's the easiest way to do it. It's pushed down to them. It's part of an existing feed for people. So it's not like they have to pull the information from anywhere.
Yep.
Who is do you happen to know? Sorry, it's noisy where I am. Do you happen to know if the people who follow us on? I'm sorry, I'm not an Insta person, so it's following on Twitter. What are you doing on Insta?
It's
Following.
Yeah, it's still following.
Okay. So across the various social media platforms, and I should know this, I'm a tech guy, but do you know who?
And the chair of communications committee, I might add.
And it's only day one. Give the guy some love. Who is mostly following it? Do you know if it's students? Is it parents? Is it just regular townspeople? Like, do you have any idea who the makeup is of those people?
It's kind of difficult to tell for Instagram because you can make whatever name you want on Instagram. So there may be somebody who's like A_018, and it could be a profile picture of a rainbow. You know what I mean? So there's
It's really tough.
there's no way to easily tell. There are, from what I'm seeing, for the people who do have their display names, it seems like a healthy mix between I don't want to say parents, but I'll say adults and students in the district. So it seems like a good spread, and we add all the time. You know, as the posts get added, more people choose to follow us. And the same thing, I always get the pop-ups after a post on Facebook. I'll get like a little notification that, you know, we have 3 more followers to our Facebook page, or, you know, 5 more people who have liked the page. So it's been working out well. We've been gradually adding to our following.
Okay, so the concept is you do the automated posts, or we'll be doing the posts around the first of the month for upcoming Board of Ed meetings, the regular meetings, plus the committee meetings. And then because the agendas don't get published until 24 hours before, you're going to probably, I guess, well, do your best, right? Because it could be a Monday meeting, in which case, you know, no one's expecting you to do it Sunday, but you're going to try and publish then a follow-up with the link to the agenda, because you can't schedule that because the link to the agenda hasn't yet been created.
Right. And so you're looking at, you know, there's 2 things. There's the link to the agenda, and then there's also the link to the meeting. So when we you know, for the Board of Ed, you know, let's say I'll create the Zoom connection information a week before the board meeting, and that the agenda will be created, let's say, a week before the board meeting, but then it can be modified and posted. It has to be, the finalized version has to be posted 24 hours before the meeting. So once we have some kind of a link to either of those is when I can schedule the post with the connection information, like for today, the call-in number for the communication meeting for the public, and the Zoom information for Board of Ed meetings. So I'm going to try to handle, I'm going to just keep tabs on our calendar, and I see when everything gets posted. And as soon as I do that is when I'll schedule everything. But it seems to be a nice and easy and slimline process. And I think that because this is something that the majority of people already have, it's not one more thing for them to add or subscribe to. I think this could, for now, potentially be a good way of reminding people of upcoming meetings that we would like for them to attend.
Yeah, and I think that's the intent, is to do the best, be able to say, we did the best we could to make the public aware of a meeting.
Sure.
And I think that this is something we've definitely, with those 3 different social media, I mean, at some point, someone's going to have to choose, hey, we're disseminating information through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just subscribe to one. You don't have to be a Facebook professional. Just, you know, you just go to Twitter. And and then the Facebook is reach. I know I've heard the term that you sometimes can't share other people's posts, but for example, you can with these posts, right? So if you post it to the Weston Public Schools Facebook page, someone like me who might be a member of the bulletin board, or, you know, I know Sharon's on there and Taffy's on there. So if one of the 3 of us see it, we can reshare it over to that group. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And that's because this is a page and not a profile. So when it's a profile, like if it was my own personal Facebook page and I posted something, I'd have to set my post to public for someone to share it. We don't have to worry about that for the Weston Public Schools Facebook page because it's already public. People can view our Facebook page without actually liking or following the Facebook page itself. So there could potentially be people who are looking at that page, but they're not liking it or following it, if that makes sense. So
Right.
you don't have to worry about sharing. Anybody can share any of the stuff that we post on the Facebook page.
Right. And the primary difference between following and et cetera is one will create a proactive alert, right? So when you post the message, if the person follows the Facebook page, they get a proactive alert that there's been a new post. And the other is there's no notification, in which case the information is out there, but the person has to go and actually go get it themselves.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Absolutely. And we have had people sharing our posts in the past for certain things already. So, obviously it depends on what we're posting is what's shared. But, when we did like the production of when we posted the production of Aladdin, people shared that. And when we have sports information, people are sharing that.
I still want to get a video of Lisa speeding around the campus in the golf cart.
I think
Yeah.
it's an incredible scene to watch Lisa. She's a
they
master.
put plastic on it, and now I don't have my mirrors, which is kind of a problem. So I have to be extra cautious. And the horn they had to take down to put the plastic around it. But yeah, that's the highlight of my day. I
think
was
we
out there this morning zipping around. You can get in and out in so many places. I go around the back of the high school and I wave, when the people are in class and they're like, "What's she doing?"
I think you should decorate it. I think you should decorate it. And I also think that we should throw a bag of golf clubs in the back. Just pretend
I
that you're
wanted
going
to.
off.
They're trying to get me a back seat, not just for mine, but we got to get at least 2 back seats put on them for graduation, because it's very sad when we're transporting grandma, not grandpa, from the parking lot, because they
If you
don't
have a back seat,
back, so.
and if you get a back seat, it's no longer a sports car. You get a reduction on the insurance, right?
I don't know.
Don't know.
That's
Good point.
interesting.
All right.
All right. So let's see here. So that's it for social media then?
Yeah.
All right. Well, at least we're a fun group.
We are a fun group.
It is fun. This is much more fun than the optimization committee. Oh, it's being recorded. Usually it's like 4 early in the morning, I'm half asleep. This starts a little bit later. I can kind of ease in. Although I always seem to be running late, even though I'm zipping around on my car. Optimization committee, we love you. It starts earlier.
We'll find out how June's video editing tools are.
I was going to say, I'm going to get a text
it's fine.
saying, "Can you cut them from the video, please?"
It's fine. I'm trying to think. So just a couple of highlights. We are sending out an update this week, albeit, a December update, albeit kind of skimpy. The other thing is that we are working on, remember I told you I wanted to do a kind of a mailing, and we have the skeleton version of it. Probably will be more like late winter by the time we get it all organized, or midwinter. But because there's some editing stuff, and I kind of put it on hold because we're trying to get the budget ready. But I think it'll be to go out.
Refresh my memory. What was this mailing about in particular?
It's a mailing to go out to everybody in the community, like a hard copy of something that talks about, it's like a state of the schools, but it's like, a few pages. And we're doing it, Sydney Girardi is the former CIL that retired, is actually helping us with it, which is very helpful. And it looks really great, but it's kind of, meant to also reach beyond just the school parents, and to kind of highlight things about our schools to the community at large.
Got it.
I'll show it to you before it goes out.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I needed the photo for, because all of your photos.
I got it.
Okay.
I got the photo.
There's a page, and right now you're all celebrities because she just put in pictures to save the space. It looks pretty clever, actually.
You should do a connect the dots, have all 7 pictures,
or match it up.
and then have some
demo,
right. You
some
have
bios.
No, there's like connect the dots, like 7, right? But I don't know what the other column would be. But connect this person to this picture, this event, this meme, or whatever.
That's a good one.
We should do it in Toronto, maybe.
Connect the board member to their bio.
That could be not that we do them, but that could be like a self-evaluation tool, right? You have your staff or your employees on the left, you have memes or whatever pictures on the right, and you ask the staff to connect this.
Connect the dots.
Right. So
I like it. All right, great. So you've got that email going out, the hard letter going out probably in January, right?
What I just talked about, no, it's probably going to be more like February.
Okay. All right.
Because I want to, but I'll show it to you before.
Okay, perfect.
Which is good as we kind of are going through the budget cycle.
Yeah. Budget cycle. Hold on. There's a budget. I'm teasing.
Yeah.
Lisa, do you
Get ready
happen
to say
know-
goodbye to January.
I know.
It's all free.
Good. It's all good.
It's all free. Lisa, do you happen to know? So I look at the what are they called? I think it's I'm not sure if it's the PTO newsletters that I get one definitely for Hurlbut. I don't know that I get one for the middle school, but we talked about I think the PTO or the principals also, when they send out their newsletters reminding parents of upcoming Board of Ed meetings, if nothing else, at least the monthly one. And I haven't noticed that's been included. Is that
Yeah,
something?
I only included on the front page of the district one. I included every month. That
Okay.
I didn't want them to repeat it. And I spoke to the PTO. I can request again. I don't, I had asked that they do that, but it might have gotten lost in translation. So I can certainly ask them and we can check. Do you know, David, offhand, because I haven't gone on their sites, which one doesn't have it?
I could tell you I'm very confident. If I get one for the middle school, I apologize. I don't actually look at it. For some reason, I look at the Hurlbut one. So definitely the Hurlbut one, which I think, I don't know if the principal sends it or the PTO sends it.
It's
But
the
there's only
PTO.
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 Okay.
They're kind of their own entity with that. I can just send out a reminder email to them.
yeah, and maybe
I think Maria
include
Rothbotham is a PTO president at Hurlbut.
Yeah, I have them all, and Debbie, and we have a new one, Jen. That was the idea from the podcast, and Kristana. I'm sure
Maybe-
I haven't seen Kristana's, but I would be shocked if
I've
she didn't put it in because she's very wanting to
She
get
puts
people-
all that stuff in there. She puts a recap in there and she puts the dates in there as well. She's very good about that.
Okay, we'll check.
Yeah, maybe we can get from Dan the links to share for the Facebook, the Twitter, and the Instagram, and that just becomes like almost a permanent footer or the bottom of each of their newsletters. So that way they don't have to worry about necessarily every month knowing the exact date and time of our meeting, but they just make it a almost like a fixture at the bottom of each school's newsletter. Don't forget to check us out, and then have the 3 links that never change to the Facebook, the Instagram.
That's a great.
Right?
I'm confused, David. Sorry, it must be my.
No, it's probably me.
No, I don't understand. Like, what links to what on what you want?
Um,
The links to the PTO newsletters? Or the
No,
No,
website?
from the PTO newsletters.
what I was saying was that
Whenever anything
ask
goes
them to
out,
put, like I put on mine, ask them to put on, check this link out for the Board of Ed meeting, something like that.
Yes.
no.
Yes.
So yes, that. But
Okay.
as an aside, because that
Yeah.
changes every month, at some place in their newsletter, they create a permanent section or a permanent place where there's a link to, hey, check out the Weston Public Schools on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and they include the link to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter because those links never change.
Oh,
Right.
I see what you're saying.
Exactly.
Dan, can you just send me the 3 links to make sure I have them right and I'll send it to them?
Well, you mean 2?
and
well-
Lisa, they should go. And Lisa, they don't have to think about it every week or every month whenever they send out their letters. It's part of their signature.
Yeah, I
It's really,
understand.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
What do
we
you
could-
say, Dan?
We would do, well, Facebook and Instagram. I don't think we have an official Twitter, unless,
No,
do you tweet?
I don't think we need one.
I don't
gotta say, I don't
tweet
think we
anymore.
need
I
one.
only do Instagram.
Yeah.
It's
That's what I was
I'm
going in the way
obsessed
of the
with you.
dodo.
But what
I'm
we could
obsessed-
add to that is the link to Lisa's incredible podcast.
Well, yes. I mean, I actually think that that's right. I think that every letter the district or the superintendent's office sends out or the school districts should have a link to the superintendent's podcast for sure.
Exactly.
For sure. I mean, otherwise
Oh
it's
my
just
God, the pressure.
no. But Lisa, you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it like everyone needs to see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one of the
Listen,
things.
we just did a film. We just did a film for Homefront, a short 6-minute film, and it is now on all of our staff's signatures, meaning like it's always there. We also have a link to a survey. How are we doing? How, feedback for us, and it's in everybody's survey, so that every time any mail goes out by anyone, they can see the film or they can see a link to a survey if they're unhappy or whatever,
Okay.
like a feedback form. Which
Yeah.
is not a bad idea, by the way, like a feedback
it's fine.
form link, click.
I got to get 2 more podcasts for February. Any ideas of anybody that we want to hear from? Oh, I got to work on the bus driver. I have to double check with that. There's an
Oh, that'd be
awesome
cool.
bus driver I'd like to do. Anybody else
Is
jump
it-
out? Like,
Who's the bus driver?
well, I want to do Terry at the bus garage, Teresa. She's wonderful. And then there's the bus driver that was always driving the championship girls volleyball team. I don't want to put him
Oh.
on the spot, but he's the one that called and got the police escort. He went to the banquet. The kids love. I mean, all the bus drivers are wonderful. I thought maybe I could do a tag team interview, but
That's
I don't
cool.
want to force people to do it. So I have to see how comfortable they are. I'm going over to visit them tomorrow. So we'll see.
You know who would make a great podcast with you is the the teacher of ho hum.
Yes, I
What's his
tried to
name?
get him. I think I'm going to do him a little bit later in the spring because he's doing a master's in mindfulness. So I think that
What's his name again?
Walter Rand.
By the way,
He's
David,
brilliant.
just as a translation, ho-hum is honors humanity. I had to ask for it last night.
Yeah, it's 12th grade.
No, I
No, but
thought
he's
I thought it
brilliant.
was
He's
somebody's
brilliant, and
name.
he's brilliant, and he's
Like the name of
creative,
the
and he
deer.
would probably be a very animated subject in your podcast.
Ho hum. I thought that was just somebody being blah. That seriously? That's
Yeah, they call it
honors
ho-hum.
community? Oh my goodness. Today I learned. That's amazing.
Me
Okay,
too.
like
I
what's
thought that
A
was-
push? Do you know what A push is? We're
I do.
testing.
Yeah.
Okay,
You,
don't blurt
David?
it out, David.
A
What's
push?
A push?
A push.
A
That's
push.
when you walk up to a door that says pull and you push on it.
AP US history.
What is it?
AP.
US
AP.
history.
U.S.
Are these all high school classes?
Yes.
Do you all have high schoolers?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but you were at Hamden High
You'll
School.
get there.
They didn't call
did.
it.
I'm hammed in high school.
Yeah, but you know what? I went to a school where they didn't even have APs. So this whole A push thing was so foreign to me. I've learned after I now have 3 kids who are either in or out of high school. I finally learned the
That would be a
acronyms.
cute. I don't know how it would factor in, but that would be a cute match this term to this.
Yeah,
right?
that's
So high
true
school
too.
level?
We have lots of fun.
There's some interesting things in there. Anyway, sorry.
All right. What else?
So
Oh,
I will say for the podcast, I want to touch upon the podcast a little bit because I really want to
Oh, okay.
put it out there that Lisa has done an incredible job with the podcast. We have 2 episodes out and we're getting a lot of viewers. And Lisa, I'm gonna surprise you right now. You have gone international because you are getting people from New South Wales, Australia, to listen to your
Shut
podcast.
up! Really?
Yes.
Is
Yes.
she gonna be like celebrity status?
Why?
Like singing autographs?
Why? These
So-
people must be like locked in for COVID or something. I mean, I'd be so-
So, I mean, now you have an international following. There's an expectation here. So
Global
that's
superstar.
why we need to
Oh,
push it.
maybe we should send out a special one this week and go into our archive ones. What do you think?
I mean, we have, so the good thing is Lisa's got a great plan, right? Lisa is incredible at walking up to somebody and then just interviewing them without them having an idea that they're being interviewed until she's already recording the conversation.
Well, you
Those-
told me to do that.
That
You
can be
told me
illegal.
to do that.
I
Only
know,
on a Weston school campus.
right, but you took like, so if you see, if you see her walking around with her Blue Yeti microphone, that's why she's doing it. So you got to start hiding your microphone, Lisa, okay? She know to get it. She's got her Yeti. There's her Yeti.
It's so subtle.
Right.
How would they know you were recording them?
Isn't it great? No, you kind of put it off to the side and then there's a special knob. Everything, Dan DeVito told me, he goes, this is how you do it. You just pretend like, you're not like it's not on and you get it on and you just start talking to them. And as you talk to them and everything else, say, okay, well, like, let's start. And then you put, like, you just kind of flow into it. Everything I learned from Dan.
That's
Maybe
your next
we should, I think we should make an executive decision and send out the Matt Paler podcast for the
Yeah.
week of Christmas.
I
Because
think
you know
it's
what? He's awesome.
Yeah.
His podcast is really great. So
Awesome.
get
I was
it
gonna
ready,
say-
Dan.
And the feedback I've been getting, and I've got that I told you that episode's done. It's in the hopper. It's ready to be published. The feedback I've been getting is, especially in the pandemic, it's hard to get to know your colleagues, right? Because
Yeah.
we're busy, we're trying to be safe. So somebody like even myself, I've been here for 18 months, right? But it's been difficult to meet everybody due to the pandemic. And Matthew has started in September. So people are getting to understand and learn people, not just from a professional perspective, but from a personal perspective, to see the road they took to get to Weston Public Schools. And Matthew's story is truly amazing.
Yeah, it's
Such an
great.
incredible story. And hearing these things, hearing the good things about Weston, what we're doing in Weston, how amazing the people are in this district. That's, the human capital piece of our district. And Lisa interviewing these people, and Lisa made it specific. It's not going to be about budget. It's not going to be about curriculum. It's the people, the human side. This is what's going on in the Weston Public Schools. So I just want to put it out there. I think that this is an amazing idea. Lisa's done a great job with it. They're quick. They're meant for people to listen on their commute. And they're interesting. Lisa asks very good questions, probing questions. If you haven't listened, take a couple minutes and listen now. I will say the two that are out is her interviewing me, the dork, and her interviewing career counselor Randy Green, which was an amazing, perfect timed podcast to get out there because it was during the early decision for college applications. So it was great and very informative. I've linked the podcast actually to our Facebook page. I didn't realize that Facebook now will grab the feed and automatically publish it on our Facebook page when a new podcast has been released. Right now, she is available. The podcast is available on Spotify. It's available on its parent, app called Anchor, and it's also available on Google Podcasts.
Jeez.
Lisa, before we leave for the break, we're also going to get you listed on Apple Podcasts.
Wow. So what's the
pressure.
name of the podcast? Yeah.
It's What's Up in the Weston Public Schools.
Gotcha. Okay. I have Spotify in my car. So I can,
on a
look you up
personal
there.
note, it's kind of funny. My brother listened to it. Now, my brother and sister, they don't really, know what a lot of what I do or whatever. They just know that I'm always working. And my brother's like, wow, that was a really good podcast with that guy, Dan DeVito.
That's good.
So
I like it.
It was fun. I have to tell you that I do love it. I think it's terrific. It's so much fun to talk to the people, and you pushed me, Dan. So yeah, let's get Matt Paylor's. I think that could be a real good feel-good one before the holiday. Even though I said I'd only do one a month, I feel like inspired.
And what I will say, and this is a great stat. So some of the statistics that I can pull are everything from where people are listening to it from, what's the age range, what's the gender, and how long did they listen to the podcast. And over 95% of the people who listen to the podcast listen to the entire podcast.
Wow. That's impressive.
Right.
really
That
impressive.
is, because I was going to say, if like 95% are logging off after the first 30 seconds, that's not good. So that's an amazing stat.
Exactly. It really is. Everybody, once they start listening to it, they listen to the entire podcast, which just goes to the concept of it, the detail, and what's inside, and who Lisa's interviewing. It's also published. It's embedded on our website. So we're trying to get that information out there because I know not everybody has a Spotify account. Not everybody listens on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts. So that it's also on our webpage. So if you go right on our webpage, it's right there. And so, and you can just click play right from the website, and it'll play it right from the website, and it automatically updates with the latest episode. So I can't say enough good things about the podcast, Lisa. It's a great idea, and I'm glad you're doing it.
Thanks. I appreciate you guys' help on it.
So
Here's a suggestion. Hold on. This is completely self-serving for this committee, but maybe there's some way you could weave in. One of the biggest goals of our committee is providing transparency, and that's one of David's flags he carries, right? Trying to find a way to provide transparency for the board so they don't think that there's anything special or magical going on behind any sort of curtains. So maybe there's some way that you could, I'm just throwing it out there as a topic, find some way to do, maybe it's an interview of the board communications chair, David, or something. We have to find a way to make it more interesting for the listener. but just a way to let people maybe like get to know a board member or something, and what
Yeah.
it's like, what the job is like, what we do, what some
Hardest
of our
part.
frustrations
What's
are.
the hardest part? What's
What's
the hardest part of the job? What's the
Yeah, I mean, we're all volunteers, doing our thing, just trying to, do what's best for the kids. But how do we, and the frustration and being attacked by, sometimes maybe we bring that up a little bit. I don't know, but just as a thought, just so we add some more transparency, which is what we all want ultimately. But we are bound by FOIA too. So talking about what FOIA means and how that
Okay, we want to keep this upbeat.
I
Okay.
Yeah,
But I
that's
agree.
true.
I mean, just the backgrounds of people, like when I sat down and talked to you, David, I learned things about people's backgrounds. I sat down with Peter Gordon because I had listened to him at the Legal Women Voters. I listened to that whole thing. And so, the things that I picked up were just fascinating. Like, Peter, you taught blind kids how to ski? Tell me about that. Like, there's human things about what people have done, or like how David was like a Dan DeVito, in a former life, working in getting hugged by a kid. Well, I don't know if you were more at the high school level when you fixed a piece of equipment in the classroom, like Dan talked about, or like Tony Pesco. I mean, he's a chemical engineer, it's interesting. I think what, the
Lisa.
people behind the position.
I used to be in the circus, Lisa. If you can't sell that.
There you go.
Used to be.
Yeah.
Did you really?
Uh-huh. See, this is why you don't play Two Truths and a Lie with Sharon at a dinner party, because I've got all kinds of goodies. All right, so next.
And by the way, I think Dan definitely got the better prize. I got my wife out of working for the school district.
Yes,
Aw.
I remember that story. You told me that story.
And
That was very romantic.
yeah,
That is
indirectly, her mother was a principal in one of the schools, and I had just moved to town from West Hartford. Not like I moved across the country. And long story short, her mother called her up while I was there and said, "Oh, this nice Jewish kid just moved to town. He's got no friends. You should
Oh.
meet him." And I'm like, "Well, there's an elevator speech." So, yeah.
Why do I want to meet him?
Right.
He has no friends.
Right. So, but yeah, yeah,
Wow.
but getting a hug from, like, now that I've been married to her 17 years, the hug from the kid sounds like a pretty good short-term commitment.
Nice.
Wow, what a good story.
I have to excuse myself because I have to be over at Hurlbut in like 5 minutes.
And your golf cart only
um,
goes how fast?
Yeah, well, yeah, it is embarrassing. I do take it right across the street. So if I don't see all of you, thank you very much for all of your help. And thanks, Dan, for getting that next one ready.
You got it.
All right.
Thanks, Lisa. Have a good
Happy New
holiday.
Year,
Thanks, Lisa.
everyone.
Yeah, have a
Thank
great
you.
holiday.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And Dan, just to give you a sense of timing. So when I was in your role to hand them up the schools, one of the items, this is going to sound crazy, and I think Sharon and Taffy will definitely appreciate it. One of the items that we had to deal with was at the high school, the bank wanted to put an ATM machine in the cafeteria of the high school. And the rationale behind it was, no, it was interesting rationale, and ultimately we approved it, and I doubt it's still there.
Right.
But at the time, and I'll date myself, this was in the year 99. Banks were trying to get people to shift from in-person transactions to online and doing more at ATM machines.
Right.
And so the bank's argument to us was, by putting an ATM machine in the high school, you are preparing kids to interact with this technology. And at the time, it was a compelling enough argument that we approved it.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, Dan, you're that was the tech of the time back in, and a lot of other things, but that was, that we had a ATM machine at the high school in Hamden High.
Now they'd set it up so kids could deposit their lunch money in there directly from their card and buy Bitcoin with it, right?
That would be a good lesson in economics, maybe, depending on what time of the day it is, up or down. But
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
all right, let's see. Next item. I think public comment debrief. Does that sound right?
Yeah, so I'm going to put that as a standing agenda item since we're always the day after board meetings. But we didn't have any public comment yesterday, so there's nothing really to discuss. I just wanted to talk about how the procedure went, if we hit any snafus or snags with the live public comment. What we did notice yesterday is there were some people who hung around after we did the student awards. They hung around on the meeting, so I had to shift them into the waiting room and then just send a message to them like, hey, please disconnect and continue watching the meeting on our YouTube live stream, which would be standard procedure if those were people who had done public comment and not disconnected from the meeting after public comment.
Okay. What happens? So as we head in, so I think, right, we can sort of guess at the interest of public comment for regular Board of Ed meetings, which is 0 to low, right? So you get people who clearly want public comment, and I can get my arms around the concept of we're lobbying to have public comment, but we don't actually have public comment to make, and that's fine, right? There are people, there are people out there who feel like they should have an opportunity to have their voice be heard, but they don't actually themselves have anything to say right now. So it seems very manageable during regular Board of Ed meetings that potentially have nothing controversial. I think that the only feedback I got from the couple of sessions we've had with public comment was we would like to have public comment relative to the topic being discussed. And so my question
You mean
is,
staggered throughout the meeting?
yes, but I think there's a way to make this manageable. So if you kind of go into it with a couple of different mindsets, the first mindset is that the people I've spoken to, which is a small, very small sampling, right, of the people who live in Weston, but they know that I'm really a communication person, and I want to offer them every tool we can within reason, so that they can, have their voices heard and their faces seen and their nuances heard. What they've said to me is that they want to give comment about a topic that either we've just discussed or we're about to discuss. And the preference seems to be about to discuss, which I totally understand. What their position is, you may not have considered something that I have thought of, or have you thought of this? So the question,
So that when we then go and have our discussion, we can surreptitious, even though we don't respond directly to public comment, we can absolutely incorporate, questions in.
right. So my question is, as I thought about this, I thought to myself, it stands to reason the same number of people, let's just say 10 people, show up to public comment, and they all have an opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes, and they all took the full 3 minutes. We would spend a half hour in public comment. If we staggered public comment so that perhaps it was closer to certain topics that we would discuss. So there's really no reason to have public comment necessarily for the superintendent's report, but there would be, as we head into budget season, public comment for the budget, public comment for other things that might get, COVID. We can presume COVID is going to be a topic for the Board of Ed meetings, as Tony said last night, for unfortunately the foreseeable future. So you may have a parent, and we may be talking about COVID in the first 25 minutes, who wants to, have their voice heard relative to COVID. And it might be a half hour later, after the principal reports and so forth, that we may talk about budget. So if we think about the same 10 people show up for public comment, we give them they all have an ability to talk for 3 minutes, we're going to be spending 30 minutes in public comment. So why not shift around public comment so that people can make their public comment closer to the point in the agenda where the topic that they have something to speak to can be done at that point.
I think that it's a good idea, and I don't disagree with the thought of having the comments be more relevant to the topic that we just covered and discussed, because that may actually change their public comment. The only problem that I foresee here possibly happening, and I'm playing devil's advocate, is that we could be accused of burying things in the agenda until later in the agenda, in which people weren't able to stay for the meeting or participate in the meeting, kind of thing. And I would like to avoid being accused of anything like that at all. I don't want people
Well,
thinking that.
yeah. You
I
know,
mean,
I
because
thought
of-
that too, Sharon. Yeah, that crossed my mind too. Not so much that we're being accused of burying, because that didn't cross my mind, but more that we would get fewer public comments because people were going to be less willing to kind of monitor the meeting until their topic came up, which might be at 10 o'clock, right? But
Well,
at
let me
the
just-
same time, we're what we're doing in exchange is essentially saying this is going to be a more relevant discussion because of your public comment and when it arrives, you know.
Well, I think people can comment whenever they choose. I think the concept is that, people can still send their email in, right? And their email would be read at whatever time. Presumably, if we went to this type of public comment, it would be read at the time relevant. If their comment is relative to COVID, it gets read at the public comment section for COVID. But people can choose to say, I only have a half hour available to attend the Board of Ed meeting. I really want to be heard. And so the first public comment opportunity I have, although it might be, we're not going to say a public comment for this topic, public comment for that topic. We're going to have maybe 2 or 3 opportunities for public comment during the agenda, which would be somewhat near in the agenda to where a public comment would be appropriate. So as I said, things that aren't discussions and more informative, there's no reason to put a public comment in there. So people who don't have the ability to stay around for the whole meeting, and conversely, for people who need to come late, they can still make their public comment whenever they choose. But of course, public comment is, in my opinion, or comment in general, is best said in context to the discussion that's just about to happen or a discussion that just happened. So I don't think it's going to be as effective if somebody decides to make public comment during a budget piece of the agenda about COVID that happened potentially an hour earlier. But I'm not suggesting that we limit the topic of public comment. I'm just saying that I think people would like to have their public comment be heard more at the time that the discussion is about to take place or just has taken place. And quite frankly, I think we should hear it before discussion takes place, because there is I think there's a general feeling, if you're asking people to speak after we've spoken, where is the value is high.
Right. I wonder, rather than recreating the wheel, the 3 of us, Taffy, you're the most senior member as far as time is concerned on the board of the committee. And I don't think that, even that's only been 2 years. So
Yeah.
maybe we need to do a little bit of research and find out from other school boards, perhaps some who have tried this approach, or if this has never been tried, this approach has never been tried before, maybe why, if anybody has tried this approach, what sort of success they've had. So
Yeah, I do a CABE search on that.
Yeah.
And just see, because I love the idea that it's more relevant, but we want to, what are our chief criteria? A chance for people to speak to a topic that's meaningful to them. That's something, that you've really identified. And B, to make it easy for them to do so. If it makes it harder for them to do public comment, then we're cutting off our note. We're shooting ourselves in the foot. Give me a metaphor, something. We're undermining our goals, right?
Right.
So if we make it harder for them to do public comment, we're undermining our goals. If it's complicated for us, that's fine. It's our job, right? In other words, if we have to vet the comments and say, okay, this one's a finance question, it's going to go here, and this one's, as you said, the problem is that somebody logs on. Oops, I forgot to log on at 6, so I'm going to log in at 8, and I'm going to put my public comment in on COVID during the finance meeting or discussion. That's not going to work. Like, how do you prevent that from happening? So, yes, I think we should explore.
Then there also comes the technical part. So, Dan, you're probably going, oh, hold on, that's going to be really tricky, because we're going to have people coming in and out of the waiting room during the meeting.
Yeah, from a technical standpoint, it's going to be more work. I know, David, you had mentioned like emails. I would rather, if we're going to stick with people connecting to the meeting, then it's one. I would not want to do both. I would not want to do both email and connecting to the meeting, because then that's a lot for Jody to now do the meeting notes, read from the public comment, if somebody emails it to us and joined the meeting. I'd rather have it like they have to join the meeting at the time. I guess.
Yeah, just to clarify that, just in case it changes your thought process. So people always can email their comments in. So I think the concept is those who choose to email their comments, they would be read as part of the first wave of public comment, right? So we're not, we just have to let people know what's doable, right, to keep the meeting going. So if you choose to email your comments in, your comments will be read by Jody as a standard procedure during the first wave of public comment. We're not going to be able to read each one of your public comments and then decipher which section in the agenda you intended for it to be read.
Right.
So if you email them, they get read in the first tranche of public comment. Then
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that we were emailing them because we had been doing a Google form and we haven't been posting the link to the form anymore.
okay,
I thought we had just
Somebody-
completely changed
yeah.
joining the meeting. So that's
a
why.
good point.
What was that?
Guys, I'll be.
So that's a good point. What happened? So somebody did email public comment. I don't even know if it was public comment. Someone emailed the Board of Ed yesterday, and they basically said they could not, I think, submit a comment.
So
That was
what-
Shara Kalani.
So
Yeah.
what happened was for once the pandemic began, it was a link to a Google form. So it wasn't an email. So they would actually click on the link, and the link was always the same. And they would click on the link, it would redirect them to a Google form where they would put in their name, their address, and what their public comment was. However, you turn on and off when that form was accepting responses.
Right.
So remember, this is the whole thing that we used to only allow it to accept responses 10 minutes before. And then what we did is we changed that to 24 hours before. And then we changed it to join the meeting and it's live public comment. So once we made that transition, we never opened the form back up, nor have we been publishing the link to the form because we were changing the version of how we're doing public comment.
Okay, that makes sense. So I think that what you're saying is, we need to create the vehicle in which people can make public comment. The vehicle used to be in person. When we were in person, they would come to the meeting, they would stand up, they would speak. Then when we went to remote, it was a form, and that form has now evolved back into essentially virtually standing up and speaking.
Right.
That is our public comment vehicle. People they attend the meeting virtually, and okay. So, sorry, that I agree. That should be the single vehicle that we offer people for public comment. So that said,
So no more emailed, right?
Right, no forms, no more Google forms, no more emails.
Gotcha.
It's virtual only to join the meetings.
right. And people can still choose, of course, to email the Board of Ed, and we treat it as any other email we get outside of meetings. But for public comment for meetings, they show up. So
Sorry, I was at the door and I was listening but half listening. So there's one way to make public comment during the meetings. Is that correct? And that is to show up.
Yeah, that's to join the Zoom meeting. Yep.
See, under your heading, David, of making it easy to be heard at meetings, do you think that's enough?
Well, I mean, I think that it's sort of it.
What if I'm shy? What if I'm shy and I don't want to, what if I don't know. I'm just thinking, yes, you should show up, but can there be an alternate way of doing public comment? Or I guess.
Well, I say if it's manageable, which it probably is, people can still send emails whenever they choose. So if
That's
somebody,
true. That's right.
So if somebody, right. So I would presume officially, that if somebody from the public were to send an email to the Board of Ed and they said, I would like you to consider the following during tonight's meeting, that most likely we as the board would either bring it up or we would maybe through process, we would forward it to Jody and ask Jody
Right,
to
but
review.
it doesn't need to be read, is the point.
Right, because I don't
Okay.
think that people, when they make public comment, I don't necessarily think that they're intending for the public to hear the comment. They're intending for us as the Board of Ed to hear it and to consider it
Yeah.
and potentially act on it. So
Yeah.
so we have email as as a method for somebody who, like you said, they're not comfortable speaking in public. or they just can't
Yeah.
make it. You know, they're on a plane
Yep.
and they have a topic that's really near and dear
Yep.
to them.
Okay, so but that would all be read at the beginning of the meeting, correct?
Yeah, I think that Dan, I think you were trying to say.
Yeah, I'm a
it's-
little confused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say, Dan, the scenario, I think there's two scenarios we're talking about. So the first scenario, the simpler of the two scenarios is if somebody wants to make public comment or really they want to make the board of the BOE aware of something that's important to them, they can email the Board of Ed at any time, like literally any time. They could do it 2:00 in the morning. If they want them, and then that email goes to the Board of Ed, and presumably, you know, we as a Board of Ed, we act on it. You know, we kick it around, we add it to the agenda, we send it to the chair, whatever the case may be. So that's one way that people can submit public comment for an upcoming topic. The other way would be to have potentially multiple sections during the Zoom meeting where people can make public comment. And what I was thinking was, and you could tell us if it's technically feasible, is we ask people to raise their hand at the time that public comment opens if they want to speak at that opening.
So
Yeah.
they'll be in the waiting room some people will be in the waiting room almost the entire meeting, right?
Well, no. So see, that's the thing. We couldn't leave people in the waiting room. They would
Yeah,
have to be part of the meeting the entire time. And then however the board would decide, because right now, like public comment is an actual agenda item. So I
Right.
would assume that
Right.
we're now going to have to add multiple public comment agenda items based on the topic that's being discussed. So that I could see the people would come to the meeting, we'd let them in,
It could
and
it
then
could be, Dan, it could be a standing agenda item in advance of each agenda item. It's
Right.
just any public comment, question mark, right?
right, that's exactly it. So then people would jump into the meeting right from the beginning. We'd let them in. They would stay muted with their camera off, presumably. We'd ask them to do that. Hopefully, we don't have to worry about managing that too much. And then it's basically just a prompt from the board. Okay, we are now at public comment. Does anybody have public comment? We'll give it 10 seconds. Somebody, turns on their camera, raises their hand, or you know what I mean? We could do that. What we see, so that would change a little bit of the process, which I don't see as necessarily a big deal. It may take some management from me and Jody, because what we had done last month's meeting when we did have the public comment is we saw who was listed, we saw who was still in the meeting, and we called them out to unmute themselves, state their name and address, and then give their public comment. And so we were able to organize and control who was speaking, so we didn't have 5 people unmuting themselves and all trying to talk at the same time.
Okay.
So that's the only piece that I would want to think through of. I think the best bet will probably be they're going to have to turn on their camera and just stay with their hand raised until Jody calls on them. And then they would unmute. So
A
that's
virtual hand raise, right? Not a literal.
Right,
physical
right,
hand. Okay.
right. They can do well, but see, here's the thing. I don't know if everyone's going to know how to do
raise their hand.
virtual. Like I can go through with everybody, like, right, Sharon, how you just raised your hand, and I can tell people raise your hand. However, we can't assume that everyone will be able to figure that out. So-
Right, but we have to at least set a baseline, right? And so the baseline is you raise your hand. Dan, the MC on the tech side, will give a once over, and I don't think we should use someone's inability to figure out where the raised hand is, especially today. Every time people attend the meetings, they become a little bit more Zoom expert. So,
well, I didn't mean it by talking about their limitations. I was saying, like, if somebody, turns on their camera and raises, they raise their actual hand, we would say, all right, they couldn't figure out how to raise their hand via Zoom. I'm going to see this. We're going to assume, yeah, they want to talk. That's all I meant by saying if they can't figure out how to raise their hand in Zoom. That's it.
okay. So is this something? So just thinking it through, the next Board of Ed meeting, which is January, that's the first go at the budget, right? That's just sort of here's where our heads are at.
Yeah.
Here's what's been presented. It seems to me like it would be a good opportunity to try this out for January, because I think the interest just from attending Board of Ed meetings as a viewer in past years, it tends to be the February-ish, March for sure timeframe where people really feel, if they want to speak, they feel more passionate about it. So if we try this out in January, again, nobody may show up, 10 people may show up. Maybe what we can do is, and I'm not sure who would be the person, I could potentially get with whoever does the agenda, or maybe Tony. We can potentially insert not a ridiculous number, but we can look at the agenda and say, look, we believe that these 2 or 3 topics will generate public interest, and then try it out in January. Have 2 or 3 points in the agenda that are published public comment. That's the key, right, Dan? Is that we state when the public comment is, so it's in the agenda, and then we ask people, we pause, Dan or Jody or Tony or whoever says, at this point, we're now going to take input from the public on the following topic, right? And then the public can speak to it, raise their hand, get the directions on how to do it. They raise their hand. We then discuss the topic with the additional insight that the public has provided us, and then we move on. So, any reason, Dan, that you can think of that we couldn't do this in January as a test run?
No, I don't. I think just the most important things is definitely let Tony know, because he's going to be, he runs down the agenda, so we're explaining that to him, letting Lisa know, so then we can discuss with Jody as she builds the agenda, and then basically letting her know where are we putting the public comment in. Like you said, are we doing it for 2 to 3 topics that we think there's going to be public comment for? Do we do it after or before every single topic that we move on to? Those types of things we just have to logistically talk it over, and then potentially putting out some kind of a note to people, like maybe on Facebook, and a blurb as we put it on the calendar item, that we are now adding more public comment sections to the board meeting. So if you feel that it would be better for you to do public comment directly before a topic you feel passionate about, you don't have to do it in the beginning of the meeting. You can do it right before that topic. You know what I mean? Something to say, hey, we've staggered more public comment sections to the meeting.
Yeah.
Since this is something that's going to affect the entire board, is this something that we need to
You do.
bring up to Tony and the rest of the board, just to say, this is what the communications committee suggests? Or
Yeah.
I think that's probably prudent, rather than just saying we're going to do this next.
I think I do agree with you. I think that this needs to be brought up with the board.
Yeah, my intent was to email Tony and Melissa, maybe just Tony, after the board, at some point later today or tomorrow, and I'll say, this is what came out of communication today. I think I'll ask, so it's formal. The 3 of us, Board of Ed members, we agree this is something that we should try out for January, right?
Yeah, we are in agreement here at the committee, and just don't be surprised if there's some pushback, which is
Right.
fine. Which is fine, because we may need to modify it slightly, but I think the chair definitely is going to want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So what I'll do is
Yep.
I will ask Tony to tune into our recording, so I don't have to send him an email. No, I'll send him an email that basically says, 3 of us met, and what came out of committee today was that we'd like to try out, or we'd like to move to public comment multiple times within the agenda, but not 2 or 3 times, right? We look at the agenda items, or he looks at the agenda items as the chair, and with the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish, which is that people can speak to a topic that's relevant in their mind prior to the discussion to be had during the meeting. And he should look at the agenda, and, determine, if is it 2 items, is it 3 items? I don't think we're looking for comment 6 or 7 times. I think it's the criteria would be to look for items that are going to generate public interest in a potentially large number, large being 3 or 4 people rather than 1 person. And I think it would be time neutral to the Board of Ed meeting, because again, if 10 people are going to show up because they want to speak to a topic and they each have 3 minutes, we're going to spend 30 minutes on public comment at the one time the public comment is scheduled for, or we're going to spend 30 minutes in the aggregate over the course of the 2-hour Board of Ed meeting.
Yep. It might actually be easier to have a conversation about that.
Or Tony?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then just keep us posted, whatever is determined. Just please, let me know so I can walk it through with Jody as to, what procedures have to change on our end.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just think it'd be faster because rather than having to wait for responses back and forth, just having a conversation with him is probably going to be faster to.
Okay.
And then you can send him a confirmation email saying, "Here's what we discussed and agreed in our conversation." But I think that's probably faster.
Okay. All right. So I guess that's all we have, right? Unless you guys have anything.
I have nothing.
All right. So if someone make a motion. Well, before we do that, everybody, as we said earlier, have a nice holiday and
Thanks.
Happy
You
New
too.
Year. We'll
Thank
see
you.
everybody-
too.
See everybody refreshed after the first of the year.
And Dave,
Yes.
thanks for pushing us. This goal of transparency and making it easy for people to communicate with us is really critical and has been missing. So thanks for pushing us in this direction.
100%. I agree.
Thank you. Because like I said, when I joined the board, I watched meetings as the public. I knew the information was out there. I understood not half as much as I understand now as a Board of Ed member, but I understood the process, how people arrive or how changes took place. And so when people would say to me, it's done behind, closed doors in a dark room in another town, it's like, that's simply not true. You just need to know how to get at the information. And that's really my big push, is to advertise how to get at the information. So thank you.
Great. And and thanks for all your support, Dan. Really appreciate it.
Exactly.
And you too, June.
Thank you. All right, guys.
We'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Happy holidays all.
Happy holidays.
Good night.
Take care.
Bye.